Hey, my friends, how's it going? It's going to be a great episode today. We are going to talk about Coach Jim Harbaugh and the University of Michigan. And of course, at the very end, we're going to do our dad jokes. I want to thank very much all of you that sent me some more dad jokes. I'm so shocked that this has become something that we got to do every episode. It's so much fun. Okay, so look, my goal with the podcast is to teach kind of like the law and how the law is applied and jurisdiction and civil procedure and contract law and tort law, right? And in my opinion, teaching that can be very boring. If I came in here and said, all right, the standards for a preliminary injunction and statutes include the following. Like, to me, that could be kind of boring. So my goal is, and like, for example, today I'm going to talk about Jim Harbaugh, the University of Michigan, the football team, the Big Ten. He gets suspended for 3 games. And there's so much now litigation and issues and contract breach of contract allegations. There's a preliminary injunction request. And so all of those things, a breach of contract, injunction, civil procedure, jurisdiction, all of it is going to be addressed in this story. So the goal is that you kind of enjoy and learn from this story, and all of the learning about how our government applies the law, all of that is kind of a side product of this very funny story. All right. And to me, it's funny because we're going through the whole legal system, and every possible aspect of the law almost is being applied to football. Are you a University of Michigan fan, Mateo? No? What are you, like, University of Texas or? Yeah, Mateo's from Texas. The Longhorns? No kidding. Awesome. All right. So, and it just so happens that he gets suspended like right at the end of the season, where they have a very realistic shot at winning the national championship. All right. So, sorry, Nathan and all my Ohio State fans for saying that. Okay. All right. So, University of Michigan began in the year 1817. So we are talking well over 200 years ago. And the football, playing football started around the 1870s for the University of Michigan. And that school was one of the pioneers in getting college football going. Now, what happened was over the several decades, there's like groups of colleges would kind of band together and form a conference. And in a conference is, they would like play each other in sports, kind of share, revenue. They would share something like academic things. They would share resources, maybe, lend each other money and stuff. I mean, so it's kind of like strength in numbers kind of. So the schools would kind of band together. And I was surprised, like Rutgers, that's in the Big Ten also, they were formed in the 1700s, 1766. Indiana, 1820. I didn't know that the universities have been around that long. Like, I knew it was a while, but not that long. Anyhow, so what happened over time is that a lot of schools, they would like kind of get together and form different conferences. The Big Ten, which started in 1896. All right, so that's also been around for a long time. The Big Ten, includes Michigan, Ohio State, Indiana, University of Iowa, Northwestern, Rutgers, Maryland. So all these schools, and sometimes like schools have like gone into it, like gotten out of it, things like that. So these particular schools, the advantage of that Big Ten is that they have their own conference, they play each other, then the conference kind of negotiates deals and makes more money for them, and then they create their own brand, and all that good stuff. Now, the over time, the different colleges had different conferences, like the Pac-12, which is sadly going away soon, and then the Big 12 and, ACC. Okay, so anyway, so there's all these conferences, right? And universities are making hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars kind of like forming this. And then eventually with sports, with college sports, then there was the NCAA. So that one they needed, because they had all these different conferences, and then the teams would play each other. Like they wanted to increase revenue. One team in one conference would play another team in another conference. So then the NCAA came, they kind of formed that so that there would be like one kind of like, association that kind of governed everybody. It's almost like, my joke is like the conference is like the state government and the NCAA is like the federal government, The NCAA has a lot of rules. And it was just recently where they allowed the student athletes to make money, with their image and likeness. And anyway, so there's like millions of rules that the NCAA has. And of course, all of the different schools and conferences agreed to those rules. And it's an advantage to be in the NCAA because the NCAA itself has so much money and it bargains these amazing deals and all that jazz, right? So the conferences have agreements with the NCAA and the schools have agreements with the conferences and with the NCAA. Okay. And then one of the many rules of the NCAA is that in the football teams, they cannot have their staff members kind of in person go scout other teams, like opponents. So they can't, like, let's say the University of Michigan has a game against, Maryland next week, for example. So they can't have their football coaches or scouts, like 3 weeks beforehand, start going to University of Maryland games and record them and do things like that. The reasoning is, it just makes it's just more costly to do that. So that like kind of like if some schools have the money to do that, then every school has to do that. It's more costly. And there's this thing about they're worried about sign stealing. Like in the football, like there's all these signs that the coaches communicate to the players, and they don't want other teams recording like what coaches do. So that anything that the football teams have, in terms of like scouting the other teams, it's only what the NCAA provides. Like they can watch the games of other teams, but they're limited to what they can do. They can't send their own people to kind of start spying on the other teams. That's what they consider it. So all of this with Coach Jim Harbaugh happened is the following. So the University of Michigan, and remember, these are all allegations. I mean, allegations that happen to have a lot of evidence with it, okay? So the University of Michigan had a junior football coach or staffer, depending on who you're asking, that, according to some of the evidence, and the allegations, is he went to a bunch of football games of teams that were going to play the University of Michigan. And he would also have some of his either buddies or other staffers, things like that. Some of them would go also. And they started recording the coaches and everything of the other team. And they had footage of this guy at these other football games. And so, and he was like right there by the field. He was recording, right? So anyway, and on one of them, he had an Instagram post of him at one of the games. So that didn't help, right? So anyway, and so the allegation is he was like kind of recording this, and then he was giving it to the other coaches for the University of Michigan, and that, they were able to kind of have a leg up in terms of like knowing what the signs were. The NCAA got wind of this and started investigating it. And then the Big Ten, which is the conference, they also kind of looked into it and then investigated it, right? And all of this, it came up in October of 2023. And then in early November 2023, the Big Ten commissioner sends notice to University of Michigan, and he suspended Jim Harbaugh, Coach Hardball, for 3 games. And he's not even saying that Jim Harbaugh knew about this. It was just that this was going on. So he suspended Jim Harbaugh for 3 days, and now comes the ensuing lawsuit. I'm happy to say for the University of Michigan, they have their football team is a lot better than their lawyers because I think the lawsuit by the University of Michigan is not going to win. They're not going to score points, It has no running team. No, just kidding. Okay, let me explain now. What happens, okay, imagine it this way. When these groups of schools get together, they kind of then agree among themselves with a certain like a rule system like that they agree to. It's called in this case the bylaws. Okay, and what that means. All right, so this is like kind of the contract law here is that they all. All the different schools, Michigan, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Northwestern, Rutgers, all the schools in the Big Ten, they get together, right? And they sign these rules. They call it the bylaws.
It's a bylaw. What's a bylaw?
And those bylaws are kind of like how they're going to relate to each other. And it's all in writing and it's all a binding contract. And then in these bylaws, it'll have things like, how, the money is split, like, for example, like if they're selling Big Ten t-shirts and all the Big Ten merchandise, how that gets split. The Big Ten has TV deals. How is that going to get split? If one team wins the Big Ten conference, what money do they get, right? What's allowed for recruiting? What's allowed for communication? What's allowed for academics? What, all that stuff, transfers, everything. It's in the bylaws. Now, then they also have kind of rules about, what they want, like disciplinary rules. And in the bylaws, they have rules about how the, if a school gets suspended or certain coaches get suspended or student athletes get suspended, the commissioner, according to the bylaws, all right, the commissioner has a lot of discretion in terms of, if there's some sort of like unsportsmanlike conduct going on and that's affecting the integrity of the game, the commissioner has a lot of discretion to suspend a player or a coach or a team or do whatever. Now, why would they agree to that? Is because they have, well, hold on. That is what they agree to, dang it, right? And it makes sense, gosh darn it. It's kind of like if, are you in a fantasy football league? You are? Is there a commissioner? Right? It's kind of, they get it from this. It makes sense, like, because there'll be a dispute, and who's going to resolve the dispute? If you and a fellow, right, it's going to be the commissioner. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, right? And so here, if there's a dispute among the schools, then who's going to resolve the dispute? It's going to be the commissioner. And then the commissioner here decided to suspend Jim Harbaugh. All right, end of story. Is it over?
Nothing is over! Nothing!
Right? Okay. Right away, the University of Michigan then filed a lawsuit. Now, this is some civil procedure. In the lawsuit, they're asking for a lot of different remedies. They're asking for a temporary injunction, a preliminary injunction, and then a permanent injunction, all right, and financial damages, okay? So here's the civil procedure. It's kind of, listen to this. In a lot of cases, you want the court to decide the case. And then, believe it or not, there's different levels of deciding the case. This is the civil procedure. There is, you could decide the case on a temporary restraining calendar, then a longer calendar, which is called a preliminary injunction. And the difference is that a temporary restraining order or a temporary injunction can be very short, like 20 days or 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, whatever. All right, that's a very short amount of time. The preliminary injunction usually is like a year, and it could be either a term, like a year, or it could be like until the full trial is done, okay? And then a permanent injunction is just, this is going to be the ruling forever into the future unless it's changed, all right? And then the damages claim is just like if there's a breach of contract, like somebody owes someone else money. So those are a lot of different civil procedure remedies. And what the University of Michigan did is they filed this lawsuit, and the first order of relief that they're seeking is a temporary restraining order against this suspension, all right? And it's kind of crazy because the suspension happened on Friday, November 10, which was the day before Veterans Day, when the courts were closed, right? So they couldn't like hurry up and get to court because the court was closed that day, which was a bummer because on November 11, University of Michigan played Penn State. Just so happened without their coach Hardball because he's suspended for 3 games, but they still won that game. Anyhow, so the temporary restraining order, and there's going to be a hearing on it on Friday of this week, unless it gets changed. And I'm going to go out on the limb and say that the Big Ten will win. All right. Of course, just like football analysts, they could be wrong. I'm going to say the Big Ten is going to win. All right. So the theory behind this goes like this. The actual lawsuit itself might take a whole year or longer or less because they might want to say, oh, Jim Harbaugh, like he wasn't involved in this cheating. The commissioner overstepped his discretion. You know, they should have followed different rules, blah, blah, blah. So that might take over a year, and then there might be like maybe they take Jim Harbaugh's deposition, meaning he does an interview and he answers questions. Maybe they find that little fudger staffer. Now, by the way, that staffer was fired on November 3rd. Technically, he resigned, but you know why he resigned, right? Because he got fired. You know what I'm saying? They probably told him, look, you either quit today or you're fired tomorrow. What do you want? Anyway, so he resigned, aka fired. Maybe somebody will do his deposition or try to get evidence, you know, of the games he went to or whatever. All of that will take a long time, right? So because that will take a long time to adjudicate, there's a remedy that's available, and that's called the temporary restraining order or temporary injunction. And that goes like this. Okay, while we wait for that long order, all right, the one that will happen in late 2024, potentially, or longer, we want to have just a temporary kind of relief. And that's what they filed the lawsuit, saying temporarily, let's suspend that suspension, all right, until we can adjudicate things longer. And there are different standards. So here, the University of Michigan, to win on a temporary restraining order, they have to prove that they would likely win the long-term trial, all right? And then also that they would, they have to show what we call irreparable harm. The text. Irreparable harm. Is that the way the text goes? Yeah, irreparable harm. Okay, let me do it correctly. Now, by the way, with lawyers, I don't know, Zeke may know this, maybe he doesn't. With lawyers, the term irreparable harm are buzzwords, kind of like with a doctor when you say heart attack, right? Those are buzzwords, I think, for a doctor. So same with irreparable harm. To win a temporary restraining order, you have to show that, hey, we probably will win long term. And you have to show this irreparable harm, meaning if you don't give us this temporary restraining order and then we win long term, we got screwed over so bad that it is irreparable, the harm. And that is the standard for the temporary restraining order. And here what they're saying to the court is, we have such a big reputation at the University of Michigan, and we're scouting players for next year. And we're recruiting players for next year. And gosh darn it, we are, 8-0, because I think they're 8-0 when they filed this and then they won the Penn State game. We're 8-0. We're the top 3 in the country. We have a shot at going to the national championship. We were so close last year and we got a shot at going to the national championship this year. So if you suspend our coach this late in the season, you may hurt the chance of going. And this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for a lot of the athletes. Who knows if we're going to get back there, So if you take this away from us, even if we win long term, we will be irreparably harmed. Like even if a money judgment later can't make up for it. And because of that irreparable harm, we want this temporary restraining order. And so that is the standard of the temporary restraining order. The preliminary one was a little longer. That will be, maybe, but here they're asking for like about 20 or 30 days because then the season will be over by then,
Nothing is over!
In about 20 or 30 days. So they're just asking for that. And so that's the theory here. Okay. Now, let's see. Let's go over the substance. Okay. This is why I think that the University of Michigan is not going to win. What the University of Michigan agreed to goes like this. In the bylaws, it says that the commissioner has, like I said, all of this discretion. The commissioner can review whatever evidence the commissioner wants to review. The commissioner could ask questions. Here, the commissioner reviewed some, evidence that the NCAA collected. The commissioner has, basically unfettered discretion. He's like a freaking dictator, right? I was born in Baghdad, Iraq, and at the time, Saddam Hussein was the dictator of Iraq. And over there, if Saddam Hussein made a decision, it was final, all right? End of story. It was so bad. He was such a dictator that Iraqis that left Iraq and lived in America were still scared of him. Isn't that crazy? So anyhow, so the commissioner is a dictator. Now, dictators are very efficient because they don't have to go to court. They don't have to, explain things. It's just efficient, right? So Michigan agreed that with things like unsportsmanlike, conduct, the commissioner can step in right away, review whatever the heck he wants, and make a decision and no appeal, right? That's the University of Michigan agreed to that. Like, I don't understand. Like, what the heck, They're making an argument that's like, well, the Big Ten also, we agreed to the handbook. That's a different document. In the handbook, they say that for certain, if there's NCAA violations, we will, that there should be like a longer term investigation. The evidence should be presented. It's almost like a mini trial within their own system. Now, the Big Ten said, yeah, but that it's kind of like some things can be that the commissioner could take on his own, and even some things that could be done, in that longer process. And it's not the documents, believe it or not, are not 1,000,000% clear, probably because they didn't envision something like this going down exactly this way, right? But it's not 100% clear which procedure to follow, except that they've always kind of done it with the commissioner procedure in the past. So historically, like, that's the way it's been done. The commissioner makes a ruling and that's final. That's it. So it seems pretty clear. I would say when I read it, it was kind of like one of those things. Like, if it's an issue that involves integrity of the game, then you could apply this sportsmanlike policy, and the commissioner gets full discretion to do whatever he wants. Then there's also this: if there's an NCAA violation, then we could have this like mini trial. So honestly, it's not as clear as it should be. Nonetheless, because then this is how they've applied it in the past, and the schools have agreed to it. I don't see why a judge would then suspend the suspension. You with me? That's my opinion. Now, today is, let's say November 13, right? November 14. 15? God, man. Today's Wednesday, November 15th. So the hearing is Friday, November 17th. I'm predicting that the judge is going to give University of Michigan the middle finger on this. That's my prediction, dang it. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. But I think that's going to be the case. Now, there is, more to it. If the Michigan doesn't win this temporary restraining order, that doesn't mean they lost the whole case, because there's still going to be that full-blown case, but I still think they're in hot water, and I'm going to explain why. First, this is beautiful. This doesn't happen that often, but there were all of these University of Michigan alumni attorneys that got together, and then they had like 1,000 alumni sign off. They drafted their own brief. Like, they actually got together and filed a pleading. It's called an amicus curiae, meaning like friends of the court. So they filed a brief. They spent a lot of time and energy doing this. One step more dumb, they would have started a podcast. Right? Okay. So these guys all got together, these guys and girls, they all got together, and they did a good job kind of putting together this brief. And then they kind of made the same arguments that Michigan made that I was telling you, and that is basically they should have done that longer version trial and all that jazz, right? Okay. Now, here's why I am certain that the University of Michigan is going to lose, all right? There was good evidence that the Big Ten did have evidence that they explained here.
A few moments later.
The NCAA and the Big Ten, they got a hold of what they called the master spreadsheet, okay? As opposed to the servant spreadsheet. This is the master spreadsheet. Okay. Which means this is like kind of an Excel file that they found, right, during their investigation. And this is beautiful. That little Excel sheet included a large and detailed chart listing the names of various individuals assigned to attend past and future football games. Meaning in this thing, that staffer, like they had a little sheet that were going around like a computer sheet. I shouldn't say Excel because Excel is a program name, whereas like the sheets are different. Like it could be a Google sheet or whatever, right? But I always call it Excel, kind of like, calling Kleenex when in reality it should be called tissue paper. All right. So this master spreadsheet, a large, so they had a chart of who's going to which games. Yeah, Zeke is going to scope out these games. Mateo's going to scope out University of Wisconsin. Which school would you want to go see? Wisconsin? How did I know that? I'd want to go to Indiana. I'd want to go to Indiana. There's this old movie called Breaking Away, and it was like filmed at Indiana. Anyway, so I love that movie when I was a kid. So I'd probably want to go there. Or Notre Dame. They don't play Notre Dame anymore. Okay. Notations showing whether in-person attendance at non-conference games would be necessary depending on different win-loss scenarios, right? Meaning like, okay, if we win, we'll go to this game. If we lose, we, go check out that game, blah, blah, blah. The 2023 game schedules of the university's scheduled football opponents, meaning in this spreadsheet, they had every team that University of Michigan was going to play. Then they had the schedule of all the teams those teams are going to play so that they can go and do advanced scouting of it. This is my favorite part. Color coding to reflect past games actually attended by assigned individuals and future games for which individual assignments were still needed. Is that pretty cool? I don't color code my spreadsheets. Do you do that, Mateo? No? Come on, dude. Look at, Zeke does? Damn, Zeke. That's awesome. I mean, hey, this guy, these staffers that got fired, maybe they could become spreadsheet operators. The names of individuals assigned to certain cities and locations, monetary amounts assigned with because everyone had to have different money to take to the games and stuff. That is pretty freaking good evidence, I would say. I mean, unless they're doing that just for fun. If we were to do this, I got with the color code. I would never color code a spreadsheet unless it was real. By October 20th, the staff member's name began appearing in media reports about the impermissible screening. That day, this is the commissioner, called the university athletic department to determine whether university was going to take any actions. Okay, so even the commissioner was in communication with them. And then, like I said, they also had footage of this guy at the different games. Here we go. The Big Ten Conference also reviewed photos and videos from the public domain, because everything's recorded everywhere, that showed the staff member dressed similarly to university coaches, standing adjacent to and communicating with coaches. So what that guy did, his name was Connor Stallions. What he did is he would go to the games and he would dress up like the coaches do for those other teams so that he can get kind of closer and take better footage. Wow, that's so rad. Okay, that is good evidence. Now, here's my favorite part. That staffer got fired, all right? The code word was he quit, all right? But he got fired, I know it. Okay, he didn't quit, because he was gonna quit. He quit because, they forced him to. So here they're guilty. I don't know, right? I mean, it's kind of funny. They fired the staffer, right? And then they're upset that the coach is getting suspended for 3 games. Do you see what I'm saying here? So something's wrong. Now, I know. So the coach Hardball, let's say he didn't know this was going on, which I think he did not know what was going on. There's this, have you seen the movie Casino? Zeke loves that movie. I love that movie, Casino. There's this awesome part in the movie Casino where Robert De Niro, he's talking to the slots manager, and what happened were there was these players that they somehow rigged the slot machines and they kept winning. And it was like the manager should have stopped it, and he didn't stop it in time, so they won all this money. And Robert De Niro told him this.
You didn't know you'd being scammed. You're too fucking dumb to keep this job. If you did know, you were in on it. Either way, you're out. Get out. Go on. Let's go.
I think the same is true here. Either, it's like Robert De Niro said, either you're too incompetent to not know this was going on, or you were in on it, all right? Either way, you're out, right? That's what Robert De Niro said, and I think that's what's going on here. I don't think Jim Harbaugh was in on it, but what the commissioner is saying, this isn't Joe Samo, the commissioner of the Big Ten, who they all agreed to and agreed to the bylaws, he's the one that's saying, Coach Hardball, you are too incompetent because this was going on. I don't think you're in on it, but you're too incompetent, so you're suspended for 3 games, all right? And I've never heard of the following suspension. Here's the letter from the commissioner, Tony Petiti, okay? For the reasons expressed herein, okay, I have determined that the following disciplinary action against this university is appropriate. Effective immediately, the university football team must compete without its head coach for the games remaining in the 2023 regular season. That's the 3-game suspension. The disciplinary action shall not preclude the university or its football team from having its head coach attend practices or other football activities. And then it's for clarity, the football head coach shall not be present at the game venue on the dates of the games to which this discipline action applies. So it's kind of weird. He can coach the team, but not on the Saturdays that they play. Isn't that weird? I haven't heard of that kind of suspension before. That's kind of weird. In my opinion, either you suspend the dude, maybe what would have made better sense is if you suspend him for 2 games and he can't go at all, or 1 game he can't, like 1 whole week, but not this whole 3 weeks, but that doesn't matter because I am not the commissioner, right? All right, what's our favorite part? Rest in peace, boiling water. You will be missed. That was pretty good. I once wrote a song about a tortilla, but it was more of a rap. The wedding was so beautiful. Even the cake was in tears. What'd you think of that one? I like that, in tears. I used to be able to play the piano by ear, but now I have to use my hands. Oh, why did Noah not include termites in the ark? I like that one. Oh, I tell dad jokes, but I have no kids. I'm a faux pas. I'm afraid of speed bumps, but I am slowly getting over it. All right, last one. Spring is here. I got so excited, I wet my plants. I'll see you next week.